Mercury, Mercury Stardust. She's a beacon of hope in the darkest night. Mercury, Mercury Stardust. She'll teach you how to make it all alright.
Hey there, hi, my name is Mercury, and I'm the trans handyman. My pronouns are she, her, and I teach compassionate DIY. We're here to help renters, LGBTQIA members, and anyone who's feeling left out in a DIY space. Hey guys, gals, and non-binary pals. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I am joined, as always, with this podcast as my wonderful co-host, Maggie Conrad.
Hello.
Wow. Oh my God, Maggie, you're amazing. Oh my God. Maggie, they're really into you today.
So much.
Wow, they're almost as into you as they were into me at my last performance last Friday.
I don't think I can claim that title, but you were pretty amazing.
First and foremost, I want to say sorry that we did not have an episode last week. We did not have an episode last week because Mercury was, I'm pretty positive I was sleep deprived that day, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. That was the day I got no sleep. There was no way that was going to happen. But also last week was my last performance. And we're going to be talking about that for a little bit today. We're going to be talking about some wonderful little sticky pads and wonderful little how-to stuff for that. And we're going to talk about the future of everything with the Mercury Stardust LLC coming up in this episode. But first and foremost, let's talk about me ending my career, my good old-fashioned burlesque career after 15 years, 800 performances, 130 some students, and 136 performances of 5-star teas, our weekly show that was here in tropical Madison, Wisconsin. Maggie, you got any questions for me to kick it off?
I have some pre-planned questions for you.
Way to just sneak behind the curtain, Maggie. I'm trying to set you up. I'm trying to make you feel like you're winging it.
There was thought put into these versus Maggie being put on the spot.
We learned 2 episodes ago that if we put Maggie on the spot, when she's asking me questions, things are going to get dark.
But yeah, I had the privilege of being at your show Friday night, and I just want to say that it was probably the most amazing show that I've ever seen. And it was, the community that you created was so evident in every performance, and I'm just grateful. And thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Oh, Maggie.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. So if you haven't watched it,
you can watch it right now, right? But can you still get a ticket for the show?
We don't have it live, but I can put it on there. Anybody who bought a ticket can see it.
Okay. By the time that you listen to this podcast, it will be available to purchase the entire show.
Yeah.
Online. It's a 3.5-hour show, I believe. It's long.
Yeah.
But
worth it.
I will tell you, it did not feel that way.
No,
I
not at all.
honestly felt like it was a 2-hour show, and then someone told me we were at 3 hours.
Yeah.
I looked at them and I said, "What?" That was wild. When we had another 40 minutes left of the show at that point.
Yeah.
It felt I was in it. We were in it that night.
So tell me, Mercury, then leading into the question.
Good. Before you ask the question, though, they can also purchase my last performance.
That's right.
And we're going to be putting that on my Merktree link and also my website too. You'll be able to just purchase the last performance. If you don't want to watch the 4-hour show, you can watch the equally as long, I guess, in some ways, the 19 or 20-minute version of my performance with my intro and then the performance and then a little bit of the outro.
Yeah.
But anyways, what was the question you were going to ask me, Max?
Well, I mean, looking back on the last 15 years and the last, 4 years of 5-star, how did it feel for you to do this last performance and have this last show?
Wow, it was a lot. I got to tell you, the last 7 weeks have been so stressful and so hard because we've been moving into this studio. Mm-hmm. We started this podcast
on a whim.
On a whim that started to be, this podcast is doing so damn good. Mm-hmm. And all the stuff that's been happening in the world, and also on my TikTok and my Instagram. I mean, we gained like 30,000 followers on Instagram in the last month or so, right?
Yeah.
Like all this stuff has been going on while also planning and producing my last burlesque shows.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get choked up talking about it because there's so much work. I'm not as emotional about the performance as I am as emotional about the fact that we did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I cannot, a lot of people were like, I'm really proud of you for ending it at the peak of it.
Yeah.
Because I agree. I think that's a really beautiful thing for us to do. But ending it at the peak is hard because then everyone knows all the tickets. I mean, we had so many people there the last night. I mean, that place was packed.
Yeah.
And then we sold so many thousands of tickets.
I think I looked at the analytics. There were 5,000 views.
Yeah.
Of the show.
5,000 views for the show. Now, if once this goes live, there's really more.
Yeah.
More than likely. It's just a lot. It's so overwhelming that last performance is going to live on for so many people. And that makes me feel really proud of that. But how does it feel to end it? Honestly, I'm really grateful that we got to end it on our terms. I've told this story many times, and in the show I talked about this a bunch. But when COVID happened, when it started, and it made its way to our region of the world, it was so devastating for us at a financial level, right? Like it really killed my community, right? Of course, COVID was an awful thing for so many people, but then it also just killed the art forms.
Yeah.
You know, like it really, the thing that we were trying to pivot for online stuff for years. We didn't have that capabilities when we first did it. Now I feel like, retrospect, I feel like everyone has an online fucking show now. But 2 years ago rather, we didn't really have that yet.
Yeah.
So when this happened, I felt like I lost a part of me. And I mourned it for, I don't know, like a year.
Yeah.
And the hardest parts of my life probably was in 2020, as I think a lot of people would probably agree. It was not an easy year for anybody. But I think especially because I was furloughed, I couldn't do maintenance. And as someone who defines herself as a fixer, I couldn't fix anything. I couldn't teach classes. And I also couldn't perform. And it was really hard. I mean, I spent over a decade building a community to support people and coming out as trans and, making a space for so many people who were non-binary and trans to come on stage and get naked for strangers and come out for the first time. I mean, I took my estrogen on stage many times. The stage was a form of activism and advocacy that I got to do every single week,
Yeah.
And then overnight, out of nowhere, on March 13th, 2020 was our last in-person show of 2020. And it was just absolutely devastating. And we tried coming back on online forums. We tried doing a pre-taped version of the show. We tried doing all this stuff, and none of it worked. Because a live studio audience is what makes the show. But a friend of mine reached out and said, hey, do you want to do the show at Spaceship.tv? And Spaceship.tv was like a production studio that live streamed it on the internet. And they just broadcast it for us. They did all the work. All me and Matt had to do was basically just show up, and Matt just pressed a button, and I just talked on a microphone, and it was like a 20-minute version of the show, which was almost always 45 minutes because I talked too much. But it was a really fun version of the show. But that is what led us to the TikTok fame. Right? This show, 5 Star Tees, is responsible for the trans handyman.
Yep.
It's responsible for how I teach. It's responsible for being the catalyst for me to come out. It is responsible for ZZ coming out. It's responsible for so many people in my life to be who they are. This show had so much meaning behind it.
Yeah.
So when we decided to end it on our terms, it was a lot about like ending it on our terms because we thought it died. And when we thought it died, boy, we had a fight to get it back. And then it was very evident this year that the times have changed.
Yeah.
That the community was moving past 5-star teas, and that, we weren't going to get headliners like we used to get headliners. And the budget of the show really inflated. We're talking like the show used to be $300-$400. Now we're talking like some shows are $1,400, and the last couple were $3,000 shows. So now you have like this huge inflation of like what the show costs, the production it goes into. We had to hire on people in order to be able to do what we used to do, because I can no longer do all the work myself anymore. So now it's this big, heavy show with a lot of overhead, a lot of stuff going on in a part of Madison that's harder to get to, and it can only limit to 60 people in the space. So that means you're not going to get enough in-person audience. So you have to rely on the online audience. And the responsibility of that to get 100 people online every week so you can pay your bills, just, honestly, the format, the layout, all of it was just telling me that there was a painting on the wall that was saying, enjoy this while it lasts.
Yeah.
Because there's no way this is long term. And you are doing something that maybe not a lot of people understood was truly special.
Yeah.
Because we were broadcasting this all over the world for people, and people were finding themselves through this show. People were traveling hundreds of miles from Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Atlanta. You fucking name it. They came. People came from Brooklyn. People came from fucking LA to see the show in person. People would show up and let me sign pictures of their cats. People would give me pictures of their cats. People would give me pictures of their kids, People would show up and they would be like, hey, can you take a picture of me? Because my daughter came out as trans because of you, and I just want to show her this, And I got to see that every single week. So, to answer your question, how does it feel to end that show? I don't know if there's words to make anyone out there in the internet, besides me and my closest friends, fully comprehend the importance of this little rinky-dink show that could.
Yeah.
And what that meant to so many people who I think in some ways identify themselves as rinky-dink, who identify themselves as, 5 raccoons stuck in a trench coat, But I think we were a bunch of misfits who got together every week and were misfits together.
Yeah.
And it made people feel seen and loved. And honestly, it feels good to end it, because that means we will always have that ending.
Yeah.
Like no one can take that away from us. We didn't fade out.
Right.
We didn't just stop because we got tired.
Emergency.
We ended with a huge bang. Think about this. What show do you know that's an a drag show, a burlesque show, a variety show that has been around for 136 shows? Not many shows get to say that they went out with a viewership of thousands of people watching online, a completely sold out show that was sold out for 4 to 7 weeks prior, right? And then on top of all that, we ended up raising $100,000 nearly because of this show for the Trans Handyman brand. What show could ever claim that victory like that?
Yeah.
A small little rinky-dink show like ours in the middle of nowhere, tropical Wisconsin. You know what I mean? Like, that's just beautiful, Maggie.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
And I'm so proud of the work we did. I'm so proud of all the things we did. And honestly, no one should be sad about it. If people who are listening to this have been longtime fans and watchers of the show, I just want to remind you, we should not be sad. This is a celebration time period, because Mercury's so happy that she does not need to do this anymore. I'm going to tell you, as a producer, I've never been more stressed out. Those last 7 weeks were liberating, because I know I got to perform my last numbers. And I know that every time I was on stage was my last one, so I gave it my fucking all, But you can see it in every video, in every fucking clip, in every performance I gave the last 6-7 weeks. All of it was just like, you could tell in my face, I was tired, worn out, and I had nothing more to give. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that now get a little bit of my life back.
Yeah.
And we're going to be taking a week or so break here. And I honestly, Maggie, I'm so happy that you signed on and help us, because I don't think we could have done this year. You know, we couldn't have done it without Matthew, our sound person, who's been my co-host for fucking 4 years and 136 some fucking shows. We couldn't have done it with all of us.
Yeah.
You know, we're the ones that did all the hard work. And a bunch of people got on stage every week. They got naked for strangers, and a bunch of people came to watch as people get naked for strangers. And I think that's just a beautiful little thing. So thank you for everyone who participated with that. But wow, what a time.
It was beautiful. That being said, you know, when we're talking about the future of the Trans Handyman brand, we'll get to that more in depth at the end of the show. But we also wanted to talk about, you know, just some tips and tricks for people to help them, you know, with little things around their house and things that you've learned over the last year as the Trans Handyman that can help people.
Yeah, I always learn a lot. I've learned a lot by the comment section of the videos. I always tell people that one of the reasons why I read the comment section is because you'll be surprised how many times someone will say something that sounds stupid, and then you Google it, and it's like, wait, that's actually a really good idea.
That's actually a thing.
Yeah, and one of them, about a year ago, someone wrote in one of my comment sections, hey, you should try the snug plug. And I was like, what the hell is a snug plug? And sure enough, it is UFL tested and certified outlet insert tool, basically. So if you have an outlet that is like can't hold a plug, and you are a renter and you cannot change the outlet, and you're not able to, or you're just fucking afraid of electrical, this UFL tested and certified little thing. That's why just don't put any old plastic in it, right?
Right.
Will go into your outlet and then hold the plug for you. It basically is like it bear hugs your outlet, the slots, and one side is a little wider than the other, and that goes into the wider side, but it's jagged and has a little bit like notches on the side. Those notches hug in there nice and perfectly, and it keeps it nice and tight. So when you put the plug in, even when you're taking it in and out, it doesn't pull it out too hard.
I saw that in your video. I was surprised. I was like, hey, that stayed in.
And I love those. And that video was seen by like 2 million people.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend, if you're a renter, that snug plug is something I do recommend. Now, unfortunately, it was much cheaper before we made that video.
Really?
It's $5 before.
And they jacked up the prices because they saw an increase.
It's $22.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
What?
It was $5.24 when I bought it.
So where's the kickback on that?
I will tell you, I almost messaged you the morning I released that video saying, hey, maybe we should put that on our affiliate link. But I just don't really, it was a fundraiser video too. Like I mentioned the fundraiser. I didn't really feel right. Those who've been fans of me for a while know that I don't really feel great about affiliate links to begin with. I want you to know when I say, hey, get this tool, it's not because of a sponsorship.
Right.
You know, if I've done it before, that's okay. But if I haven't done the topic yet, I feel weird to be like, give me your money and then I'll talk to them. You know what I mean? I just feel weird about it. So the video started doing really well. And the first thought I had was, fuck, we should put that in there. Maybe we should have put that in there.
Because it doesn't cost people like any extra money that are buying.
No.
It just takes money.
Yeah,
from
it just takes money from it. And I will say that now if you read some of the comment section,
yeah,
where you can always tell when people review it and they mention me, we did some good stuff. Yeah. But that being said, it went up to $20.
Yeah.
And now it's 24 for $20. And it was 24 for $5 before. So, you know, $1 an insert, I don't know.
Yeah.
I would say that it's still better than nothing.
Well, especially better than what some people were doing, which is, you know, messing with the plugs.
Oh, yeah, lots of comments
that
about that.
I saw you multiple times say how unsafe that is.
So the knee-jerk reaction is to squeeze the plugs together, right? So if prongs rather. So if you have a plug that keeps falling out, people's knee-jerk reaction is always, well, I've been doing this for 20 years. Well, here's the thing. Every time that you squeeze your plug, and your prongs together, be it a USB port or be it a light switch, you are destroying the length of time that thing is going to be around, right? They're not designed that way. They're not designed to be bent that way. So every time that you doing that, you're risking the chance that it could break off and get stuck in the outlet. Because again, the outlet, you're going to also make the outlet more loose, right? So if you're bending it and you're putting it in there, that might be the cause of making it worse and worse and worse worse too.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why the plug falls out like that, right, is because of the way that you're taking it out. So if you're angling it, if you're putting pressure on the pins inside and you're yanking it from the side or you're yanking it out and it's not coming out like straight,
right?
If you're angling it in any way, you're putting the tip of the prongs that are inside are going to press up against the wrong way towards the pins. And it's going to push the pins out, and it's going to just, over time, it's going to just piss those off. You know what I mean? And basically, they have no spring left to them.
Man, now I'm thinking of all the times I accidentally unplugged my vacuum by just going a little too far and yanking it out.
Yeah,
of the wall. Maybe I shouldn't do that.
You know what's funny is, Maggie, that's actually a really good point. That is actually one of the ways that happens.
Yeah, I'm
so
sure.
I think people don't always, it's like a million cuts, right? You don't see it. You don't see it. It happens over a course of 5, 10, 15 years. You don't see it. But every single time you use a plug the wrong way, you are destroying the length of that outlet, right? Outlets are not perfect little creatures, right? They are just rinky-dink little pins that are inside it, that those pins have springs attached to them. And every time you insert it, those pins are then pushed back into the springs and they hold it tight. But like with any spring, you can stretch it out, Right. You remember like those slinkies when we were kids, right? Yeah. You would take a slinky and you just like spread, just
and then
yank it out.
Stays that way.
And it never goes back. That's essentially what we're doing is when you're pulling it on an angle or you're shoving it in on an angle and you keep doing that over and over again and you're not mindful of that spring in there,
right? You're
essentially stretching it in ways that shouldn't be stretched or pushing it in a severe way that shouldn't be pushed, and sandwiching that, slinky in a way that the slinky shouldn't be sandwiched or stretched. And then all of a sudden it's not doing its job.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what happens essentially. And the way that we can prevent that in the future, if you're not someone who's going to be able to put the plug in and take the plug out in a way that's not going to damage it, then I say, hey, get yourself an industrial or commercial grade outlet, because that's the best step. A lot of times they're $1.99 of the ones that are in your homes, right? So that's going to be more of an issue. But the $8, $10, $15, $20 ones, they're going to handle a load and they're going to handle you beating the crap out of it, you know? But typically they're not going to. All that being said, outlets are also not designed to be plugged in and out all the time either. And people hate that reality. The cheaper ones are not designed to be plugged in and out and in and out and in and out 10 times a day. Every time you do that, you're stretching out. High volumes of usage. Well, that's why hotels and airports are notorious that way. Lots of usage, right? And they never hold a fucking plug, right? How many times have you been in an airport? How many times have you been in a hotel?
Yeah.
And the fucking thing ain't working. Well, it's because it's so much usage and probably improper usage to some extent too, that it's putting so much stress on it. That's why they're that way.
That's interesting. That, I never think about things like that, like how it gets like that. I just know that it's, broken and needs to be fixed. But like, I feel like now I'm going to be a lot nicer to my outlets.
Anytime.
So thank you for that.
Be nicer to your outlets. Be nicer to your plugs.
Yeah.
Be nicer to your doorknobs, your windows.
True.
Anything with a hinge. Anything with a hinge. Anything with a spring. Anything with a turn knob. Anything they're not designed to be mistreated. Like, let's look at a doorknob, right? Doorknobs are designed to be turned inwards, right? They're designed to be turned inwards or outwards, depending on what kind of doorknob you got. But they're designed to be turned. What happens when you lean up against a doorknob? What happens when you put, a whole bunch of heavy stuff like a bag or something on the doorknob, right? What happens to that? You're putting strain on it in a direction it's not designed to hold. It's not designed to hold anything vertical. It's not a hook. So those screws are going parallel, not horizontal.
Oh, true, yeah.
So now, or not vertical, rather. They're going horizontal, not vertical. I'm sorry.
Right.
But they're not going vertical, which means you're putting stress vertically, which is going to naturally loosen up the knob or bend it, and then going to make your life a living hell when you have to do that repair. So those little things, hey, I do it all the time. I hang stuff on my doors all the time, but be mindful. And if you don't know why things are happening, it might be because of improper usage. And that's harder to admit because we don't see it because there's a million cuts that lead to that, right? We don't know why it's happening, but something we're doing is causing that problem. I see it a lot in cabinet doors, right? Like cabinet doors get a little cattywampus, or, those like patio doors, or even the classic bifold doors that we just recently talked about on the podcast.
The closets. People
lean up on it in a weird way, or they hold on to the top part, or they lean on the cabinet door, or they hang on the patio door, and they don't know why it's not shutting properly. It's because you just loosened out that hinge. You just bent that knob. You just, screwed up that.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm thinking of all the times I use the cabinet door as leverage
to get up. Yes. Maggie.
I just had a visual of myself. I was like, oh, shit.
Maggie, I remember one time I showed up to someone's apartment, and there was a cabinet door that was completely ripped off. And it was broken in half. It was very beat up. And I asked the tenant, what happened? And they said, you're not going to believe this. All I did was just try to pull myself up. And I said, oh, you just pulled yourself up and it just broke. And he said, yeah. And I said, how many times have you done it though? And he's like, quite a few. How long have you lived here? 7 years. I'm like,
yeah.
And how many times do you go down there every day? And he's like, twice, 3 times a day. And, that's going to over time that you're going to use that over. It's never that one time. It's never that one time. But it's always that accumulation of time and misuse.
Well, and I think we see our parents doing these things. We see, we live with a roommate who does these things, and we just unconsciously do these things, and we treat these parts of our home in ways that they weren't designed to be treated. And then we're, my doorknob's loose and my cabinet's, wonky, and all these things are wrong. But we never, it's we just kind of, it doesn't really, it's not at the forefront of our minds of all of the ways we use these things.
If you take care of your home will take care of you.
Yeah.
And if you don't take care of your home, and you don't think about how you're using your home, you're letting down your home, and your home is going to let you down.
Yeah.
Right? And just be mindful of that. And of course, we're not going to be perfect. Come on. It's just, we're not. We're going to forget stuff. We're going to mess things up along the way. Our home's going to forget us as long as we put time into it.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't put any time and effort into it, the home isn't going to be there at the moments we need it the most.
Yeah.
And I think that we look at it like it's this inanimate object that doesn't need any care, that you built this rock solid piece of material, and it protects us from the rain, it protects us from hail, it protects us from snow, it keeps out all the bird crap, and it does all that stuff for us, right? And we never ever stop and think about what the home needs in return. And I think that people need to understand that it's a living, breathing thing that does hold trauma, that does hold pain, that does protect us from stuff. And when we are the saddest in our lives, where do we go? Into our home, into our bedroom, and we cry and we feel safe because of the home we've created. And I want us to think the same way when we're thinking about what we can do to protect our home, sometimes from ourselves. Do you know what I mean? Because I don't want us to live in a home that is just so beat up, because it's experienced a lot. Like if you have kids, right? And the home is going to be naturally beat up, and that's okay. It's going to be messy sometimes. That's okay. Don't beat yourself up for it. But every once in a while, just think what you can do to prevent those things. Do you know what I mean? Like if you have a kid who loves to draw crayons on the wall, I'm going to encourage you to not do that, because that's a nightmare to try to fix, right? But if you do, Maybe there's a way to put a big ass chalkboard on the wall or get chalkboard paint. You know what I mean? And do those kind of things and work with your home with what the needs are. Your home doesn't have to be cookie cutter.
Yeah.
By far, do I want you to? No, I don't want you to have a cookie cutter home at all. I want you to have a home that's mostly unique to you and no one else. But retrofit your home and do things for your home to best suit your life, rather than trying to just make do with what you got. You are worth the time it takes to learn a new skill, and you're worth the time it takes to make your home your home. And I think that's really important for people to remember going into the new year, you know? But before we go into our next section, I also want to mention some things I'm trying. So I have been bugged for a long time to try a few products. And, you know, of course, the biggest one I'm always asked is command strips.
Yeah.
Everybody and their Tom, Dick, and Harry cousins want to ask me about command strips and what I think. I innately don't like command strips. I don't like them. I know I got a lot of mutuals online who teach, tool, DIY without any tools or without any power tools. I get that. I love it. I support it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I have no trust in fucking double-sided tape or in any of these products, right? In any of these command strip stuff. I don't like them. I think they do more damage most times in proper use. Will do more damage than a damn screw or a nail. If I was a landlord and I was a maintenance technician for a long time, I preferred nails over fucking command strips.
Because that can just like rip the drywall off.
Oh my God. Here's the thing. If you use a command strip in high humidity, like if you have an apartment that has no air conditioning, right? And in the summer, your walls sweat, right? You know what's happening? That command strip is sweating into the wall and adhering to the wall and the paint. So when you need to take the command strip off, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You're ripping that paint and that drywall and that cardboard right off the wall. Now I got a big ass repair to do. I prefer nails.
Yeah.
I prefer nails. I prefer screws. I prefer drywall anchors over any goddamn command strips, But a lot of renters have to go that route. But I still think it's so funny that landlords are okay with command strips and not fucking nails. But some landlords are. Some have a big pet peeve about that. But all that being said, I have tried some products. The first one I have tried is Gorilla. A Gorilla Glue comes up with a double-sided tape that's supposed to be, you could take it right off the wall, right? It hangs. It can hold paper. It can hold poster board. It can hold stuff. And I gotta tell you, I like it way better than a double-sided tape. I love it. I like it way better than the command strips because it's clear and it doesn't seem to leave a sticky residue like others do. Now, I have stuff hanging, and I put some stuff in my office that we're gonna take down in about a year.
See how it does.
Yes, and then we're gonna take a look and see what it does with the adhesive in there. Especially if it's in my office a year from now, when we do the next podcast before our holiday break, I want us to check in and see if that stuff has worked. Now, another thing we did today.
Wait, what was that tape called?
A Gorilla double-sided tape.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that's what it was. I'm not really quite sure. I don't look at things. The other stuff is called alien tape. Now, alien tape is something you might have seen on TV. It is absolutely one of the stupidest products I've ever seen. It claims you don't need screws anymore. It claims that you can hang anything on the wall without any damage if you just use that stuff, and then you can put a shelf. You can hang a TV. They show you hanging a TV. Yes.
You didn't tell me that. What?
The image is them hanging a fucking TV on the wall.
No, don't. Whatever you do, people do not.
With double-sided tape,
with
Maggie.
Tape.
And also, to be mindful, this tape that I got, I'll tell you, here's my review. So far, we only put some stuff on the wall just before the podcast, so we don't know. We cannot tell you honestly what it's going to be like. Yeah. But my first initial response, though, was it smells awful.
Yeah, that was a whiff.
I will say you might need a respirator to put this on.
Yeah.
And if this is going to be like, if this is trying to advertise as like an alternative to having no tools, I'm going to say the bullshit to that because
Mm-hmm.
PPE is tools. And if you got to wear a respirator to put that on the wall, honestly,
That's true.
we should have been wearing respirators when we had that. It was so strong. That smell was scary. That smell was like oil-based paint smell. You know, that was so strong.
It was.
But yeah, it was so the smell was so smelly. It was wild.
Mm-hmm.
So my hot take will be in a well-ventilated area with windows wide open with a fucking respirator on. Maybe this will work. I was impressed with a few things right out of the gate. And I looked at Maggie and I was like, what the fuck is this? First and foremost, I don't think this is going to rip off any paint. I think this alien tape genuinely might be the best tape I've ever seen when it comes to hanging posters without any nails. So maybe that's the route to go. And we're going to find out because I'm going to fucking do it. And then we can tell if it's going to actually do its job or not. Okay. Now, here's another thing that I'm going to throw out there. We put a piece of 2x4 in the wall because I was like, okay, if we can hang a piece of 2x4, we don't have a shelf on it yet, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to hang a shelf on it and build a shelf all by using this. And then you tell me if I don't need any fucking screws anymore. Right? But we hung a piece of 2x4 on there. And then by me holding it, like putting my hand on one table and the other side putting my hand on that 2x4, I was able to lift myself off the ground 250 some pounds on that immediately. I put that on the wall.
No waiting.
3 minutes later, I am hanging off the ground. I mean, my feet were all the way off the ground. My knees were in my chest.
Yeah.
And I was holding myself off the ground. I was floored. I've never seen that before. But
yeah, I expected it to buckle under your weight just because you would literally just put it on. And usually they're like, wait, 30 minutes to an hour or a day to 100%. Hang anything off
I think what we're going to do is we're going to give that a month. We're going to give it a month. When we're done with this podcast recording, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take it off the wall and see if there was any damage done to it. And then we're going to do a whole video, because I think this would be fun to do, is me assembling a shelf from front to back by using a fucking hand miter saw. And I'll build a shelf by just using a hand miter saw and no holes in the wall. And then see if it's going to damage the wall or if it's going to hold itself up.
I want to see that. And we're also going to put it in your Amazon storefront.
Yeah, if it works. If it
works.
I'm not convinced that this is something I want to, support. But if it can do the things it says it does, and you have a well-ventilated area, I mean, the thing is, I'm already having a lot of if you do this, and if you do that, and you do this, that's when you start nickel and diming people. When you're like, oh yeah, I mean, this is on a budget, and then. If you have a respirator, when respirators are $50, $60, you know what I mean?
That's true.
If you do it outside and you're wearing two regular, masks, and then maybe you're going to be okay. But usually when you do stuff outside, it has to be the right temperature when you do anything with adhesives. Because if you're outside and it's below 60 degrees, usually the adhesive doesn't set right.
Right.
Or it gels up, and then you go back inside and stick it on the wall, and it doesn't actually do it. It needs to be the right temperature, between 60 to 80 degrees is usually what they tell you. Maybe 60 to 90 degrees. But if it's really hot outside, it just makes it all mesh, and it just distributes it too much across the area.
Oh, sure.
And it stretches out so much that when you go back inside, it doesn't really have any hold left. It's not centralized enough, So you got to make sure it's the right temperature to do that kind of stuff outside. But yeah, that's my hot take. That if that product works, Maggie, I will resend all of my comments I've ever said about, how I've always said you need to have at least a fucking drill to do most of this work. I think it's important. I've made caveats and I've said, you can get a Black & Decker 12-volt lithium battery gun for $40. It's a good enough drill. You can get a $25 power drill that's corded, right? You can get a hand crank drill for $15 off of Amazon. I've made caveats to people and told them you can actually get this stuff for fairly cheap, and a lot of the stuff isn't that scary. The corded drill might be, But the 12-volt battery drill, not that scary.
Mm-hmm.
And the hand crank, not that scary. You know what I mean? But if this works, I will shut up.
Time will tell. Time will tell. Speaking of time, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the future. Now that the show is in the past and, you're firmly in the Trans Handyman brand and in the studio, and let's tell the listeners what's the plan for 2023? What are your goals moving forward?
We have a lot of big stuff coming up in 2023.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of going to give you a list of the things we're up to. One of the things that we're up to for 2023 is in March, we will be doing $1 million fundraiser for Point of Pride. Point of Pride is a nonprofit organization that's dedicated to providing financial aid and services to the trans community from a healthcare perspective. Mm-hmm. So if you need binders, they get your binders. You need help with surgeries, they get your surgeries. You need help with your HRT treatment, they're going to get your help with that, right? They're a great organization. We helped them earlier this year in 2022 by raising $120,000 in 24 hours. We did that with only 2 weeks of planning and just sheer audacity. That's how we basically made that work this year.
Yeah.
With me just being on live for 24 hours, just nearly passing out to raise that money. And our original goal was only $24,000.
Yeah, in 24 hours.
Because I thought it was a great catchphrase.
Yeah.
24 in 24 hours. We raised $24,000 in the first 6 hours.
Yep.
And we just kept changing it. And we're like, wow, we can aim for 100,000. So now here we are. We are now aiming towards March. We've had a full, almost an entire year at this point to plan, to think how we want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And on March 30th, we will start our 30-hour live stream for $1 million.
Wow.
And me and a very good friend of ours on the wonderful Jory from Alluring Skulls on TikTok, her and I are both going to team up together and to do a live stream here in tropical Madison, Wisconsin together for 30 straight hours.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
And we are going to have some special guests. Of course, Dylan Mulvaney is going to be calling in at some point and supporting us like she always does. And we're going to have some good, wonderful people supporting us along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're going to find out more special guests as we go along. But I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be a huge, huge thing. And I am very nervous we're not going to hit 1 million. I am so scared.
Yeah.
But if you've been following me long enough, you know that I make these goals and somehow we're able to pull it off. And I think we can pull it off, especially with the help of our community.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you enough. 2022 has been such a hard year for the trans community from a medical center, like from a medical point of view. Like we've lost our rights in a lot of different areas. It's been really scary about being able to access the care that we A, deserve, and B, I feel like there's just a story that's being woven right now in a lot of the parts of the country that's just patently untrue about trans people grooming kids and about us trying to have these devious perspectives and, doctors trying to pull the wool over your eyes. And these stories and narratives are being told. And I can tell you right now, for every one horror story linked to the trans community, there's 1,000 to 2,000 people living their life.
Yeah.
And you can act in fear, you can act in ignorance if you want to. But every time you respond to one story, one antidote, one situation that you may not be able to verify yourself, there are 2,000 to 3,000 people who are going to suffer because of that misunderstanding, the miscommunication, and the all lies that are being spread about the trans community. So before you make that knee-jerk reaction, remember that. And also support us come March because we're going to need all the help we can get. And if you can't support us financially, be on the live stream if you can. Watch the videos that will be about it. Share, like, comment, do all the things. Interact. help us for the algorithm, right? Food for the algorithm. And help us reach more people, because I really do think we can do this.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah.
But I'm terrified I'm going to fail. And anyone who knows me knows I put a lot of stress on myself to do these things for people. And I really think we could do some beautiful things.
I think you're going to have an amazing team around you this time. You know, last time it was the first event that we ever did together. Not only was it planned in 2 weeks, but I was hired 2 weeks prior as well.
Yeah, Maggie was.
So I think we're going to have a lot more support, you know, this time around. Aiden from Point of Pride has been amazing, and he's going to be here as well, you know, to support you in person. We have this, you know, nice big space for you to spread out and lay down and sleep in. And,
we're going to have a futon and et cetera. Oh, not a futon, but we're going to have a pull-out couch and stuff like that here.
Yeah.
We're going to turn this into
a lot of support,
into a space that can really hold it. And that brings me into the next spot. Early in Q1 and Q2 of next year, we're going to spend a lot of time on making this space the space.
Yeah.
I've told Maggie this before, but we're not going to try to fix it all. We're not going to try to make the space exactly what we want. We're going to focus on room by room, and we're going to take it time. I want to get everything kind of close. Like, I want to get things kind of organized. I wanted to have a space, but I don't expect us to have this space really done by the end of, until like the mid or end of 2024.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is going to take like 2 years for us to financially be able to do all the things we want, to time-wise do everything we want. But I think we're already well on our way. I think the set is only maybe 3 weeks away from being done, maybe 4 weeks. Being done enough. I think we're always going to add things to it. I think my office is probably another month, maybe a month and a half away from being done.
Got some UFOs in there, though.
I got my UFO lights in there that I can't wait to show people, but the UFO lights will look so cool.
Yeah.
They're like regular overhead lights, but they're UFOs, that LED
so
lights
pretty.
and stuff. They're really cool. But then we have the 2 library, and we have the multiple sets for the Ask Candyman series, and we have the podcast studio, and then Maggie's office, and then we have the shared lunch space and
we're bringing on some employees, and they're going to need space.
And that was the next part I was going to bring on. So we have that early part of the year is going to be kind of twofold, where we're figuring the space out, we're organizing everything, we're getting all the tools in, we're getting all the renovations done that we want to, and then we hire 2 new employees at part-time to try to make sure that we can divvy this up and to make this work. And everyone in our company, mine and Maggie's company, we all get paid the same, regardless of me or not. We all get paid the same hourly, and we do the work together.
Yeah.
And I think that's how I want to run this. We've never wanted to be greedy. We don't care about the money. I just want to make a living, but I want to make people who work with me, I want them to make a living too. I hate the notion of interns. I hate this notion of like, you know, let's do the work so you can learn the work so you can get paid for the work. No, you get paid for the work right out of the fucking gate, regardless if you know what you're doing or not, you know? And if your time is very precious. And when people take that time away from you, you should be compensated, right? And that's how I feel. And I also feel like I want to be surrounded by people who are excited to come to work, not begrudgingly coming to work. And I think every day could be a really fun adventure here if we're all working towards a common goal. And some days we're not going to have a good day. And some days we're going to want to be at home. And we should be able to make those calls together instead of like not. So that's my philosophy kind of going into the first part of this year. And then on top of all that, we have those really big events in its own right will be enough for one single year, right? Hiring 2 new employees, growing so fast, getting potential brand deals that we are not going to talk about, but we are definitely getting more brand deals that are going to help us and kind of
more sponsorships. They're going to help you to do what you love to do instead of asking you to create commercials all the time.
Yeah, we're getting, I think the biggest takeaway of this year is we're getting better at learning what I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And this year was largely doing things I don't want to do. And I don't want to get into specifics and stuff, and then we'll save that for a different date. But I don't like doing a lot of things I think a lot of content creators like to do.
Yeah.
Or want to do. Sometimes I watch like people on YouTube or TikTok and I see how they do brands. Or I listen to a podcast. Like my favorite podcast that has been for years is How Did This Get Made with Paul Scheer. And Jason Mantzoukas and June. I love them. I love them so much. But I just noticed something recently. Boy, Facebook is paying them and McDonald's is paying them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I would never fucking work with those companies. And I find myself reacting more in ways where it's like, I don't want to be the shell of capitalism.
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and talk about how excited I am to eat a fucking Big Mac. You know what I mean? I don't want to sit here and act how excited I am to log in on a fucking Facebook account and use their new Metaverse 2 or whatever it's called. Like, I'm realizing how much disdain I have for the system.
Yeah.
And I really only want to do products that I actually use and I actually believe in. And I don't mean like believe in because they give me a lot of money and I believe in the fact that I can cash that check. I mean like genuinely I like their mission and I think that they're setting out to be fairly good people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to shift to more and more in a bigger way. And I hope that all spans out. And then the next part of that will be the book coming out.
Yeah.
I think that we can't tell you when the book is going to come out because honestly, I don't even think me, Maggie, for sure know when the book is going to come out. But
we'll start hearing about it over the summer.
and I don't want to say anything for sure yet, but the book is going to come out sometime next year for sure. And I'm really excited for the book to come out because we've been working the book has been, by the time the book comes out, it'll be about a full 2 years since I started working on it. And I am so fucking happy.
And it's funny because you really only wrote it like in the span of a couple of months.
Yeah.
Like it was, because we tried let's do a little bit here, let's do a little bit there, let's write here and right there. And then like that was not working for you. So what it ended up being was like weekends away. And I think you did like 3 or 4 weekends away and like wrote the entire book in those 4 weekends.
Yeah, I think I wrote the book in 6 days.
Yeah.
I think
like,
if you combine
total.
it all,
Yeah.
But to be all honesty, though, it's 6 years of writing it, but 15 years of knowledge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I first I kicked myself in the ass for, like, not putting enough time into it. And now I'm realizing, you put a lot of fucking time and effort.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, the layout, every conversation we have is about the goddamn book, you know? And I'm really excited about the book coming out because, like,
it's
I don't know.
Beautiful.
I really, from the illustrations to the cover to we're really making this book something that I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah.
And I'm excited because I want the book to be a catalyst to allow people to learn. Right? Like I want them to feel safe enough to open it to even have the opportunity to learn. Not just for me, but learn with themselves, you know? And hopefully the illustrations and the imagery and the words that we've chosen can inspire you to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And the book is going to be nice and hardcover, so if you need to use a hammer, you got one. Yeah, the book should be.
Don't ruin the beautiful book. It's going to be like a piece of artwork.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll put a piece of metal on it, and you can use it as a little ding-a-ding. Ding-a-ding-dang.
Metal ding-ding-dang.
Yeah, metal ding-ding. But yeah, that's what we're up to. And I think that's basically all the big stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And while that's happening, I know more is going to happen. The 2 library, we've talked about maybe coming out in the Q3 or Q4 of next year.
I love how much you've adopted the quarter mentality.
I have. You know what? I really like the Q1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Because of my neurodivergency.
Yeah.
If I say like the fall,
right,
or I say the winter, or if I say a month, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But when I say Q1, 2, 3, 4,
yeah,
it like really contextualizes my year.
Yeah.
And really makes sense. Like we're like, this is gonna come out here, and this is gonna come out between Q2, Q3, and this is gonna come out. We're not even gonna think about this until the end of Q3, maybe early Q4. That makes sense to me.
Well, and my business brain loves it too.
Yeah, I bet you it does. But it really, honestly, like I was on the microphone the other day and I said something about.
Yeah, I remember.
Like we're ending the show. The show is like in my last burlesque show ever, right? I've been performing for so long. And then here I am, all of a sudden I was like, well, yeah, I can't wait for Q1 and Q2. And then I looked at the audience, did I say fucking Q1, Q2 at a burlesque show with my boobs out, Yeah. But yeah, I think that's where we're at. And honestly, what a wild ride.
Yeah.
From ending the burlesque show this year, if we look back of all the things we've done this year, Maggie, from, of course, the fundraiser, but then
Mm-hmm.
all the other fundraisers, from helping Mick to helping Luke to us, I cannot wait for us to sit here and tell you every single thing about the Topeka trip at some point. And
we just want to say we love Luke.
yeah, we love
It's been
Luke.
a long road.
We have,
but we
for
love
those who've
Luke.
been asking about the Topeka trip, we traveled all the way down to Topeka, helped Luke with his roof.
Mhm.
We were fine. The roof is done.
Done.
Now it's just a matter of us going down to Topeka and me
Mhm.
fixing the interior, get Luke in a better place, and then making sure we got a little extra money for that and make sure we can take care of all the other expenses for Luke. And then finally wrapping that up, you know? But for all the things we've done, from that to all of these amazing things with these speaking gigs, I did so many
Mhm.
speaking gigs this
so
year.
many.
That have been so wonderful. And I don't know, it's just been, and then of course 5-star every Friday, and then we're ending that, and the multiple burlesque classes I've done, and it's just been so much stuff, and I'm trying to think of all the things I've done, and it's just overwhelming. It's just this. I'm so lucky and grateful to all of you, and what a one hell of a year it's been.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to finally have a home here, to finally have all the stuff that we need to make this business work. And maybe in early next year, I can get a fucking truck.
Yeah.
and-
That's on the agenda.
Yeah, that's on an agenda. So that sounds really good. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode. We will come back in 2023 in January. Thank you so much for supporting this episode and supporting all the episodes. I appreciate you. If you want to learn more about me and all the things I do, please follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And until next time, remember, you're worth the time it takes to learn a new skill. Bye-bye.
So grab your hammer and nails and paint your nails if you want to. You're worth the time it takes to be you. She'll teach you how to fix your house, how to fix it by yourself. The